So how did I join the Boogie Knights? The Boogie Knights. So I was playing in a band called the X Idols, and I left that band and started my own band, a solo project called S is for Space. And anyways, while I was in the X Idols, I was playing in Hawaii though. And how I met the guys that ended up being the Boogie Knights was they were um, they were vacationing, the bass player and the singer. The bass player's family was vacationing, and the singer of a band called Roxanne. They were called Roxanne. The Boogie Nights were originally an original band called Roxanne that did play that funky music as an encore. Even did it on television. It's on YouTube. Anyways, they they were on Scotty Brothers released a record. Please check it out. It's an awesome record. Awesome band. Great band actually. And anyways, um, and the singer of a singer tagged along with the bass player's family to Hawaii, like for free, and they went, and so at the time they were sending Hollywood bands to um, um, Hawaii, and anyways, this was my second time being in Hawaii. I went out there in Imaginable Peace, and that's live on the radio. That's on YouTube, and the X Idols, which I also have, but that's not. There's one track on YouTube, The Doors. It's on my channel. And and Doug and Robbie would go to the Jazz Cellar, which was later called the Rock Cellar the second time I went there. So if you know it as the Jazz Cellar, it was also called the Rock Cellar by '92. And anyways, they came down every night because that was the club that Roxanne also did that. They were one of the Hollywood bands that went out there, amongst the many others. And like Cherry Street, and list goes on and on. Circus, like kind of like everybody, sort of. And and it was a really good time, especially if you're 19, and at the time I was 20, and for the X Idols one, 19 on the first time, 20 on the second time. And anyways, Doug and Robbie hung out with us, and I didn't drink alcohol, and so but I had an alcohol tab. And so I gave them mine, and which was like $20 worth of beer, which is like $1 a beer at the time, back in the good old days. And so they got like 20 beers, no tip. No, I don't know if they tip. I have no idea. But anyways, I didn't even drink till I was like 23 years old, but before I even drank alcohol even once. Anyways, so we made friends with them, and Gary was a huge fan of Roxanne. So he used to sit he told me he used to sit in the front row and marvel at Jamie Brown's vocals, and because Jamie Brown's a really good singer, very consistent. He always sounds good. He never sounds bad. He never sounds different either. It's like extremely consistent. Anyways, I remember walking down the street with Doug one night, and he was drunk from my beer, and we were walking down the street, the main drag in Honolulu, and he's telling me, yeah, about Roxanne, and goes, we're actually starting a new band. I said, what? Okay, and he goes, we're gonna do all disco songs, and wear costumes with wigs, afros, and John Travolta wigs and whatnot, And I'm like, oh yeah, and he's like, and we're gonna call it Boogie Night, and he goes like this, all drunk. He goes, we're gonna call it Boogie Nights with the K, like he's all cool, with the K. And I just remember that. I just remember him saying it like that. All funny. Doug's very quiet but very funny person. And anyways, so when I left the X Idol, well, we made friends with them. So the first shows we did with the X Idols was playing with Roxanne, and so because we were really close, and then we hung out. I met the other guys in Roxanne, which was John Butler and Robbie, the drummer, and Robbie Schweitzer, I believe it is. And he actually played on my S for Space record. Anyways, we did our first in the mainlands. We did our first shows with them, except for we did do one show at the Viper Room. I just told the story about meeting Johnny Depp. That was our very first show before, and our only show, I believe, before we went to Hawaii, and we were totally awful. And we went to Hawaii. I don't know how, we got good somewhere in there, and then came back and then did those shows with Roxanne. We were good by then. And anyways, we played I remember playing at the library with Boogie Knights, and X Idols opening up, and they were popular because their Roxanne records sold in Arizona. I think, and only in Arizona. So they played in Arizona like all the time. That's why Boogie Nights' roots are in Arizona. If you know anything about it, all their early gigs are in Arizona. Anyways, um, they played, or we played, and then Roxanne played, and then Boogie Nights played, and they had the costume. And anyways, how they got their first gig was they played Halloween as Roxanne and did an encore as Boogie Nights doing disco covers, and the place went crazy. And the owner goes, "We want that!" And so we were playing their first paid show as Boogie Nights or with Roxanne, but Boogie Nights was getting paid to play the third set. And anyways, but then I think from then on it was just Boogie Nights 3 sets, actually. Anyways, and we played this place, the library. It smelled like food in there because they were cooking food, and it was a library. I don't know, it was a funny place, really funny. I've done some weird gigs. And anyways, when I left the X Idols, I asked Robbie if he could be in my band and play on my demos, and he played on one of my songs, and so does Conway, and maybe another one. I think we might have did 2 songs, but I think it was just one at that point, actually, or maybe 2 songs, but I think it was just one. And anyways, I was listening to it over at Doug's, because Robbie and Doug lived together, the drummer and bass player Roxanne, and we were listening to the recording after it was done, and on the boombox, and it's about my dad beating up my mom and all that stuff, and I was trying to write a sad song because it was grunge time. I actually don't usually write songs like that though. Anyways, but people these days, that's like your best song, man. Anyways, Doug comes out and he's like got a tear in his eye, going, "That happened to me and my family with my dad." And hey, how come you didn't ask me to play bass in your band? And I go, well, I was going to get my best friend to play bass in my band, but he doesn't want to be a musician. He's not really a musician, so he doesn't really. We were just in a band in high school. And anyways, but yeah, all right, you could be in my band. And so Doug played on the other recordings. And so the EP is Doug on like 3 of the 4 songs. Everything but And So Does Conway. And so somebody asked, who was the members of Boogie Nights when I played with them? Well, I played with lots of Boogie Nights, but the original lineup was Jamie Brown singing, John Butler guitar, and the band's pretty much always the same. Except for the singers change. John Butler guitar, which is like, there wasn't a better guitar player and more funny person to talk between songs as well than John Butler. No one even got even close. There's a couple of people I thought were funny, like the singer Booty Quake is really funny, but there's something special about, like, I thought that John Butler's literally like actually as funny as Eddie Murphy in his prime in Delirious. Like when John Butler in his prime, I don't know if he's still that funny, but he probably is, but because he's just kind of funny dude, even off stage. But but he's a genius, and that's why that thing really took off, I think, because I remember watching them and I couldn't take my eyes off of John Butler really, and his guitar solos, oh my God, when he plays super slow blues with the best, most coolest sounding bends, like I don't even like better bends than anybody I've ever heard, kind of, it's like that. Anyways, and he's known for it. So I'm not saying something that everyone that knows that's seen him play guitar, that all the other guitar players in the company go, yeah, oh yeah, his bends, oh my God. Anyways, so it was Doug on bass, Doug McRoy, that's his name, and Robbie Schweitzer on drums, and the original Roxanne lineup though was different. The actual album is DL on drums, and he was in my band later on when they started having several Boogie Nights. And on bass was Joe Infante, who was in Groove Line, which is, I'm in the band called the Super Freaks. It still does that show. And the guitar player, Joe, was in Groove Line. I played with the guitar player in Groove Line for over 23 years now. 23 years straight. Anyways, and we do an 80s band too, because it's more popular now, of course. And so when I started playing with them, it was actually Adam, though, because Jamie Brown immediately started managing, because he got so much work that he just started booking more bands, more work than the bands could even do. And anyways, hold on 1 second. I'll tell you in 1 second. Okay. My neighbor went outside, but I don't want to like tell my life story in front of the neighbor. I just moved here. Anyways, can you even see me? There we go. So, was there a light in here? That's worse. There we go. All right. So, anyways, it was actually Adam Shore that was singing with them at this point. He was hired as the first guy after Jamie because he was a huge fan. Adam Shore was the singer of Warrant and Shake City and Hot Wheels, and the original singer of Warrant. And Adam Shore, I could tell. That's a different story. I was going to tell that as a different story. Anyways, so I played with Adam Shore every Sunday night. In Arizona at Gibson's on the campus, and at a club called Gibson's right there in the quad, and it held like 1,000 people, and it would be sold out with a line around the quad at 9:00 before we even set up, actually, or even get there. And so we felt like rock stars, except for in my head we're a cover band, so that it always bothers me anyways, because I was like, I just had a record deal. I just put out S's for Space record, and somehow I have to play covers. I've grown to accept this over the years that musicians have to do lots of different kind of jobs, but at the time I was like, this is some bullshit. I was like that. Anyways, but anyways, so how I got the gig was this. They were doing my recording of my demo, and I was there all the time at their house recording because they had a practice studio there for the drummer. Drummers always have like a soundproof room in the garage. Anyways, they had that, and so they said to me, "Hey, we need a guitar player for Boogie Nights." In this time they only had one band at the time, so it was they barely had like four jobs a week or something like that. Like just barely starting to become normal job to them. And because at first when I was playing with them, they only had two gigs a week at FM and Pelican's Retreat, FM station and Pelican's Retreat. Anyways, but now they'd morphed off into, now they have every Sunday in Arizona. So now they're up to 3 gigs, actually just 3, and at this point. But they needed a guitar player to play Sunday. I'm like, why can't John do it? And they said because he's cheating on his wife. And I go. Or they said because they think he's cheating. His wife thinks she's cheating on him, and I'm like, well, why does she think that? And then Doug goes, because she is, and she caught him. I believe this is like his first wife, and he got remarried or something like that. I believe they got divorced like not too long after that. I think, I don't even know. Anyways, that's how I got the gig, playing with them every Sunday. But I was really just like a stand-in. And then they got so much work that they had enough work for 2 bands. So then they started another Boogie Knights band. And this is before they started naming them different bands. They called all the bands Boogie Knights at this point. But the thing was the band that I played in was with Jamie Brown singing every Thursday at Pelican's Retreat, because he didn't want to just be a booking agent. He wanted to keep on singing just to be a singer, just because it's fun. And it's close to his house, it's in town, it's not out of state, and that's why he did it. And he only did one of them a week. He didn't, because I had a different singer, Joe Retta, who I believe just sang on the new George Lynch record, and a bunch of famous people lately in like the Trans-Siberia Orchestra now. But he was the singer with me every Wednesday, and really cool guy. Although he thinks he's mad at me, but that's a whole nother story. I'll tell that one. Anyways. But we were really close, actually. Anyways, so I still like him. Anyways, so that's who I was playing with at first. Those 3 different singers, and I play with Adam on Sunday, Jamie Brown on Thursday with a different singer, and I'd have the the lineup is the drummer would be on Thursday with Jamie Brown. It would be the original drummer of Roxanne, which was Dave Landry, DL, and who did the artwork for my S's for Space record and the X-Idols album, if you can believe that. and I didn't even know who he was or meet him yet. I happened to join a band with him doing discos. The guy that did two of my albums, my only two albums at the time, or two of three of my album covers, two or three of my album covers at the time. I was like, how is that even possible? That I didn't even know this dude was a drummer, much less. It's just weird. It's just weird. And so, anyways, that's the story of how I joined, started playing with the Boogie Knights. And I'll tell like detailed stories, like like stories because Jeff Scott Soto sang with Boogie Nights, and a lot of people like the guys in Steel Panther played in one of the Boogie Nights band called Booty Quake. All of them, every single member, including the new bass player, he was in Booty Quake. And I subbed with Booty Quake. I played with him. I got a story about the time when he said "fuck you, Cool Whip," because my stage name was Cool Whip, and I pissed him off on stage because I was trying to be really funny and outrageous, but using him as the butt of the joke for a long time. Too long. Anyways, I'll tell that story later. All right.